Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called I'm Only a Stepmother, but My Daughter is Just So Cute. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy. Stories portray stepmothers as vile and jealous characters. If you look at Abigail with her upturned smile and intense gaze, you'd also put her in the villainous category. Abigail consults her magic mirror, and when the mirror tells her that her stepdaughter, Blanche Friedkin, is the most beautiful girl in the land, her smile becomes a creepy, upturned smile. Ew, her smile looks really scary. She almost looks like a serpent. Beck Copley was a lover of all things cute. As a children's clothes designer, she worked tirelessly to turn children into princesses. When her body couldn't keep up with the limits she was pushing herself to, Beck Copley lost her life at the age of 30 due to overfatigue. But by some miracle, Beck Cup finds herself with life anew. However, this time, she wakes as the beautiful and alluring villainous Abigail. On a perfect day, Abigail invites Blanche to join her for tea. As Blanche makes her way to her, she can't help but showcase that upturned smile at Blanche's cuteness. Seeing this, Blanche recoils, thinking she might have made a mistake again, albeit unknowingly. Oh, Blanche, don't worry. That's not your evil stepmother anymore. Hearing the fear in Blanche's voice, Abigail quickly clears the air between them. You see, when Beck was reborn into Abigail's body, memories of the original Abigail's actions flooded her mind. Turns out, Abigail constantly subjected Blanche to her terror out of jealousy for Blanche's young and beautiful features. How envious! At one point, Abigail briefly experienced death. But when she awoke again, Abigail's original consciousness was gone. Beck Cup's consciousness replaced Abigail's own, and now she continues to live in Abigail's body, which explains the situation she's currently in. Anchoring herself back into the present, Abigail stares at Blanche fondly. With all sincerity, Abigail apologizes to Blanche for everything she put her through in the past. Blanche may not believe it now, but Abigail truly wishes to make amends. This story is literally like Abigail's redemption arc. Except it's Beck Cap who saves Abigail through her genuine actions. Realizing that it takes time to heal, Abigail excuses Blanche so that both of them may rest from the afternoon. As Blanche exits the garden, she accidentally bumps into the king. He merely looks down on her with contempt and tells her to be gone. If Abigail could describe King Savrion Friedkin, the perfect word would be trash. Dang, what a waste of such a handsome face! Savrion and Abigail's marriage was merely transactional in hopes of uniting two nations. But as soon as they were wed, he wanted nothing to do with her. Abigail, who was Cronenberg's most elegant flower, had experienced rejection from her own husband. Due to his constant contempt towards her, Abigail began to hunger for his attention. But even as she died, Savrion could only offer her harsh words, even so far as expressing they should not meet in the next life. Today, as Savrion meets Abigail, he comes only to discuss matters relating to her brief death. He tells her that a possible cause could be poison. However, since a proper autopsy cannot be performed, doctors can't be too sure. LOL, that was a snide remark. It's like he's saying, because you lived, we couldn't find out what was wrong with you. Savrion also inquires about the events leading to Abigail's death, but since she still couldn't remember anything, they hardly had anything to discuss. Cutting to the chase, he directly asks Abigail if she purposefully ingested poison to get his attention. It was only natural for him to assume, considering she had done it before. Jeez, talk about ego. If this is how Abigail usually acts, then it's time to put an end to it. She turns to the king and without any hesitation tells him that she no longer craves for his attention. She could only get so far by obsessing over gaining his favor. To further assert herself, she offers a suggestion to Savrion. With a smile on her face, she tells him that they should start using separate rooms. A king must be an elegant communicator. However, upon hearing Abigail's suggestion, Savrion is far from being articulate. He stutters as he repeats her request. His ego crumbled for sure. Abigail affirms that she indeed wants separate rooms. He does not further the matter as he agrees to her request. Between Abigail and Savrion, it is Abigail who is leading the conversation right now. She no longer finds a point for Savrion to continue his responsibilities to her as a husband. However, her only request is that he fulfill his role as a father to Blanche. A child deserves to be treated with love, which is why he should at least provide Blanche with that. Savrion is disgusted at her audacity. He reminds her that Blanche is his child and not hers, so he will do as he wishes. Hearing his response, Abigail expresses her anger vocally. "You go, girl. Tell him who's boss." She carries the same friedkin name that he and Blanche carry. Therefore, she had all the right to concern herself with the child's well-being. Without saying any more, she leaves Savrion appalled and alone. Later that night, as the maids hear Abigail summoning them, they worry about what the queen might want with them. Ah yes, anxiety at its worst. Abigail is known to be unpredictable. Even the smallest little things could bother and anger her. And what happens when she's angry? She takes it out on the maids. When the maids arrive, they are surprised when she asks them to choose which gift suits Blanche more. The new maid, who is unaware of the queen's attitude, answers her honestly. Hearing this, the older maid fears that everyone might get punished for how laid-back the newbie talked to the queen. However, she soon finds herself in disbelief when she realizes that Abigail's intention has no ill intent. Gosh, how mean was Abigail in the past for her maids to suspect her of pure evil all the time? As the queen gives away her jewelry and grants permission for the maids to dress freely, the new maid Clara could only admire her majesty the queen. Despite her kind gestures, Norma, the older maid, still hesitates. Could this really be the same Abigail? She feels like she's serving a totally new queen. I mean, technically, you're not wrong there. During breakfast, Abigail asks Claire about Blanche's fitting. She could only think about wanting to style her in the cutest dresses. Even though Abigail wants to go, she holds back as she knows Blanche might feel uncomfortable around her. Hearing the queen's doubts, Clara tells her that it would be a good idea to go, especially since Abigail is preparing to give Blanche a gift. Feeling reassured, Abigail asks Clara to help her get ready. Make sure she's as pretty as ever. Meanwhile, in Savrion's study, he is visibly bothered by something. Something with Abigail's recent behavior didn't sit well with him. For the time being, he assigns his attendant, Millard, to observe her actions and immediately report them to him. Later, during Blanche's fitting, Abigail hides from view as she observes Blanche and her aunt/tutor, Madame Jeremy. She is utterly speechless that Jeremy is choosing uncomfortable dresses for Blanche. Sure, they're pretty, but comfort should be considered too. Not wanting to cause trouble, Abigail holds back from speaking up. Gotta admire her self-restraint there. After all, they don't even know she's around. As she continues observing, she notices Blanche taking an interest in certain dresses. However, it seems like Blanche's hopes are crushed when Jeremy doesn't pick out the dresses she likes. Although she really liked the dress, Blanche can't find the will to tell her aunt. Seeing Blanche sad, Abigail could no longer hold back. Pushing the door strongly, she barges into the room, ready to fight for Blanche's wishes. Hooray! Abigail to the rescue! Everyone's mouth opens in shock at the queen's entrance. However, Abigail pays no mind to this. Instead, she immediately asks about Blanche's fitting. As if she doesn't know, she's been there the whole time. Jeremy responds that the dresses for the princess's spring collection have already been ordered. Eyeing the dresses Jeremy picked out, Abigail notices that none of them were to Blanche's liking. In an attempt to help Blanche, she tries to find the dresses that caught Blanche's attention earlier. As she stumbles upon the pretty dresses, she immediately asks if Blanche likes them, to which she happily responds yes. She continues to look for dresses, but she really can't remember all the dresses that Blanche likes. Look how much effort she's making! Suddenly, her search halts when Blanche smiles at her genuinely. How cute! Her smile is so beautiful! Seeing her bright smile, Abigail couldn't contain her happiness. Immediately, she declares that she will buy all the dresses for Blanche. Even though her intentions are pure, Jeremy still stops her. There is no way that the princess's budget could afford all the dresses. It is at this moment that she reminds them that she said that she will use her own funds to pay for Blanche's dresses. Later on, Abigail presents Blanche with 2 pairs of shoes. She tells her that it's a gift, and it's the reason she came here in the first place. Blanche is over the moon about the queen's gesture, but still, she feels sort of guilty that the queen was spending this much on her. Hearing her sentiments, Abigail reassures Blanche, saying that Blanche could repay her simply by wearing the dress she deemed her favorite. As the queen excuses herself, she is rather pleased with her actions. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks as Blanche comes running to her with a big smile. Aww, I think she's going to hug her! Blanche is breathless as she runs to keep up with Abigail. When Abigail asks what's wrong, Blanche immediately shows her that she's wearing the shoes the queen gave her earlier. As she models her shoes, she happily smiles at the queen and tells her how joyful she feels. Aw, I really thought she was going to hug Abigail. That night, Abigail can hardly sleep. All she can think about is Blanche's smile and beauty. She really wants to be closer to her. She thinks of giving the princess another gift. Initially, she would love to give her a dress, but perhaps it's too soon. The next day, Savrion observes Abigail as she follows Blanche around. He's still skeptical about the sudden kindness she's showering Blanche. As he reflects on her actions, stealing glances at Blanche and screaming afterward, he convinces himself that she truly is masking her hate for Blanche. Savrion sees Blanche finish her stroll, and lo and behold, Abigail tails near her. His eyebrows raise as he realizes that Abigail is probably about to reveal her true colors. Meanwhile, Abigail is excited to give Blanche her gift. She prepares for a week just to bestow her a gift that she would actually like. But as she draws nearer, she gets nervous about the entire situation. She didn't want it to look like she was following Blanche around. She was, though, but of course, nobody had to know that. As she makes her way to leave the gift, Savrion confronts her. She tells him that she has a gift for Blanche. Upon hearing this, he immediately inspects the box in her hands. Dude, you really don't trust her at all? As he opens the box, he finds a bunny doll. Abigail smirks at Savrion, knowing all too well that he is doubting her. What she doesn't expect is what he's about to do next. With a swift motion, Savrion slams the doll to the ground. He draws his sword and without hesitation, he stabs open Abigail's gift. If only he did that out of concern, but obviously, he just did that to prove that Abigail was plotting something. Savrion forcefully tears open the doll that Abigail had prepared for Blanche. He inspects its stuffing, thinking a needle is being hidden inside. When he finds nothing, he expresses his amusement at Abigail's lack of ill intent. What an awful person that man is! Abigail shatters as she looks at the ruined gift before her. A week's worth of effort fades away in the span of seconds. Savrion? He really is as cold-hearted as ever. How could he feel no remorse for his actions? Abigail's anger and sadness mix in a chaos of emotions. She tries her best, but her eyes flood out all the tears born of her emotions. Oh, I hate seeing her cry. She doesn't deserve this. Savrion is shocked to see Abigail crying. Suddenly, Blanche appears before them, curious about the whole situation. Quick on her feet, Abigail covers up the mishap. It was unfair to make children witness fighting, especially if it's their parents. Trying to compose herself, she tells Blanche of the gift she prepared. She tells her that the needlework must have been sloppy since all the stuffing came out. Hearing this, Savrion is shocked that she concealed the whole situation. In response, Blanche caresses the broken doll, saying that one of her maids would fix it for her. Either way, she would treasure the doll as it is. She really is a sweet angel. After the incident, Savrion consults Millard about Abigail's behavior lately. Millard tells him that he's been hearing nothing but good things, but for sure it's all an act. Savrion questions himself. Could it really be possible that Abigail's a changed woman now? Just believe it, will you? Just as he and Millard converse, the ministers request an immediate audience with the king. They have come to discuss matters of bringing a second queen. For what? Abigail is more than enough. Once again, eloquence doesn't seem to be one of Savrion's better features. Finally collecting himself, he manages to remind the Duke that he has no plans of taking a new queen. You can at least treat Abigail better then. The Duke disregards this and proudly puts forth his daughters as potential options for the king. He must have gotten too carried away as Savrion yelled at him in response. Speaking after, the minister tells him that the matter of finding a new bride is of importance. If the king dislikes the Stoke family, then it would be best to consider different families as options, so long as a bride is chosen. Savrion is about to interrupt when the minister mentions Raven, the king's illegitimate brother. Ooh, now I'm definitely curious about Raven. He seems intriguing to say the least. Nobles value bloodline most of all. If Raven marries and has a son, the nobles would want to choose him over Princess Blanche. After all, a prince with the same blood as the king is more prioritized than a princess. Not wanting to hear any more, Savrion dismisses all the staff before him. In an exhausted state of mind, he briefly begins to have delusions. A beautiful woman wraps her arms around him, telling him that worrying about those matters is one of the king's duties. Is that his first wife? However, he suddenly sees the piece of clothes he had picked up earlier from the dismantled doll. Snapping out of his delusion, he quickly stands up and collects his thoughts. Remembering Abigail's words, he reflects that it is the first time he's heard not to act like a husband. As he reflects, his thoughts drift to Blanche as well. He truly admits he hasn't been doing a good job at being a father. As if that wasn't obvious. Exhausted for the day, Savrion retreats to his quarters, but what awaits him is a shocking sight. In his bedroom, roses are lined everywhere, and exactly on his bed is Abigail in a very red and non-conservative robe. Despite insisting on separate rooms, Abigail purposely stays in Savrion's room tonight and lays out a romantic mood. Don't get her wrong, she still despises Savrion very much. However, with the earlier events of ruining her doll, Abigail decides to take revenge. Yes! Don't get mad, get even. Abigail tells him that so long as he doubted her innocence and pure intent, she would stay by his side despite his dislike. The only way she'd leave him alone is if he'd apologize for what he did. Savrion responds to her by saying that he was mistaken, not about her innocence, but about her excuse of sharing the bed. He still thinks that she's head over heels for him. The audacity of this man! Hearing this, she once again tells him that she no longer craves his love. To her surprise, Savrion actually apologizes, except it's the driest and most forced apology ever. That was drier than the Sahara Desert. Deeming it insincere, she tells him to apologize properly if he wants to be left alone. Bending down to a full bow, Savrion complies as he expresses a sincere apology. Satisfied, Abigail motions to leave his quarters, but before she does so, she gives him her unsolicited advice. As she always says, she doesn't want to concern herself with him anymore. Whether it's love or heirs, all she wants is a simple life. Therefore, it was all right for him to take a new queen. Similar to what Savrion told his advisors, he yells at Abigail, telling her that he would not remarry and that only Abigail would be his wife. Ooh, for some reason, I got butterflies in my stomach. Dropping the topic, she leaves Savrion's quarters, but as she makes her way back to her room, her cheeks flush the reddest hues. Today, Abigail indulges in her self-care. But as Clara is putting fragrance oils on her hair, the scent makes her react in a panic. The scent simply reminds her of that night in Savrion's quarters. I guess she would like to push that memory from her mind at all costs. Seeing Her Majesty react so badly, Clara is quick to catch on that it's related to the king. After all, it was Clara who decorated the room with a seductive red rose theme. Concerned, she asks if something had happened that night. Abigail reassures Clara that everything went all right. Before they could talk further, a gift from Savrion arrives for Abigail. As she opens it, she sees 2 rabbit dolls nestled in the box. It's similar to the doll he destroyed that day. Oh, so he does have a conscience, huh? But what was this other doll? It takes her a while, but she realizes that the dolls resemble mother and daughter. Inspecting it closely, she realizes that one of the dolls wore the exact same outfit she wore before. So could it be that these dolls resemble her and Blanche? Oh, how cute! It really is her and Blanche! She muses at the dolls, thinking that perhaps Savrion wasn't as bad as she originally thought. As she opens the attached letter, she immediately takes back what she says in irritation. She couldn't believe that Savrion would dare threaten to reduce her budget. Later on, Abigail entertains merchants as she acquires items of rare and great quality, especially a material meant for Princess Blanche. She takes interest in their other items, noting that they've been bringing in much better items than they did in the past. Abigail expresses that she enjoys the items the merchants have brought. Most of all, she especially enjoys the magic mirror she once bought. It's the mirror mentioned at the beginning of the story. Abigail, though regal in stature, often finds herself at odds with the art of discernment. Just a month ago, a crafty merchant had attempted to deceive Her Majesty by pawning off counterfeit items. As a princess, Abigail had been sheltered and cherished. Yet her sheltered upbringing left her ignorant of the world's nuances, fostering an air of pride that masked her lack of worldly wisdom. She was often portrayed as indifferent and like a know-it-all, a trait that had made her an easy target for past deceit. However, a newfound sharpness allowed her to effortlessly discern the shady items now presented to her. That particular merchant senses that the queen must know that the item he's offering is fake, hence he got the item, a magical dress weaved from morning dew, dawn's light, and spider webs. What are we seeing here, mister? I think you lost your dress. If not, then you lost your brain. The merchant spins a tale that only those with tainted or malicious eyes are blind to the dress's celestial allure, assuring the queen that its beauty will sparkle before her very eyes. Assuming the queen's pride would compel her to avoid admitting any inability to perceive the dress, the merchant believes he has her hooked. Or so he thought. However, the ever-cunning queen devises a plan to turn the farce into a spectacle. With playful yet piercing remarks, she suggests that the garment resembles a man's dress coat, and so commanding the merchant to try it on. Attempting to backtrack, the merchant soon realizes that the queen's words are not a mere suggestion, but a direct order. Thrown into an underground prison, stripped bare of clothing, the merchant's humiliation echoes through the chamber. Abigail's head throbs with realization as she confronts the frailty of her past self, once easily manipulated. After this incident, the merchant coalition suffers a great loss due to the change of heart of the biggest pushover. Meanwhile, a daring merchant takes a chance, offering Abigail a genuine magic tool. Distrust etches across the queen's face, anticipating yet another attempt at deception. To everyone's astonishment, the offering turns out to be a magic mirror, a mirror that purportedly speaks only the truth. The queen tests the so-called magic mirror with the timeless query of Snow White's stepmother: who's the fairest of them all? The magical mirror shimmers, casting a reflective glow before chastising the queen for her foolish question. The queen and all present are rendered speechless, their jaws dropping in collective astonishment. Truly jaw-dropping. I would love this mirror for myself if only I didn't possess such a foul mouth. Everyone stands in disbelief as the mirror speaks to Her Majesty, particularly shocking the merchant himself, realizing his item has just insulted the queen. He pleads with the queen to spare his life, claiming the product must be defective. However, the magical mirror takes offense at being labeled as faulty. Fearful of what else the mirror might say, they quickly cover it with a cloth and rush to remove it as per the merchant's desperate plea. But Abigail intervenes. Snatching the cloth off the magical mirror, Abigail confronts it, questioning if it indeed called her foolish. Well, this foul-mouthed mirror is certainly doing an unexpected twist to the story. Responding to the queen's abstract query about beauty standards, the mirror astutely points out the subjectivity of such questions, earning Abigail's admiration. I like this mirror. Well answered. The merchant trembles in fear as the queen says she'll take it. She meant the mirror, you idiot. Abigail takes a liking to the mirror, leaving everyone equally shocked and awed. She even names it Verite, meaning truth. Verite is surprised. He's never heard Abigail was this kind of woman, in a good way. Other than spitting out spiteful remarks, Verite is probably smarter than any decent civil official in this palace, which makes Abigail like him more. However, despite its purpose to flatter, Verite is determined to shatter and disappear rather than shower any praise on the notorious queen, defying Abigail's strict commands. Meanwhile, seeing an unsettling reflection of evilness, Abigail feels like she's talking to herself in the mirror. And it seems like the mirror had some senses in it. It transforms her reflection into a man with similar features as Abigail. Such a handsome man! From that day on, Verite assists Abigail in the palace, following 3 strict rules. No casual conversations, only the truth without any flattery, and an intriguing instruction: to name Princess Blanche as the fairest of all. Abigail is just too cute with her obsession with Blanche. Verite struggles with this contradiction, unable to answer the unanswerable question despite Abigail's insistence. His unwavering convictions clash with Abigail's evident intentions, leading to a chilling moment where Abigail's demeanor turns menacing. No doubt her character is originally carved for an evil role. In a tense exchange, Abigail's frustration mounts, and with a screech of her nails against the mirror, she demands an answer. Verite, holding to his principles, meets a swift end as the mirror shatters into countless pieces. That day marks Verite's first encounter with the peculiar queen. Now he stands helplessly, subjected to the dreadful sound of Abigail's voice. Repeatedly, Verite must endure Abigail's insistent inquiries about who's the fairest, cutest, loveliest, all met with the same answer: Abigail's beloved Princess Blanche. For Verite, it feels like a relentless assault on his self-esteem and pride. Abigail's fixation on Blanche seems excessive, dominating their every conversation. They're choosing a gift for Blanche, and Abigail is irritated with how rude Verite is, as if she's not threatening this poor mirror in their relentless battle. Observing Verite's display of dismay in the mirror, Abigail sweetly coaxes him, insisting he's the only one she truly trusts in the entire palace. She strikes a deal, discussing Blanche in exchange for learning all about Verite's favorite subject: magic epidemiology. Upon mentioning epidemiology, Verite visibly softens. Classic give-and-take strategy. Bravo! She's got the magic nerd to loosen his guard up. Verite helps her with the gift for Princess Blanche. He even calls her Veve now, meaning he isn't pouting anymore. Veve? So cute! Verite is amazed at how Abigail seems happier as she makes the gift for Blanche. He assures her that Blanche will like the gift surely, because who wouldn't? Abigail decides to trust the words of the smartest in the palace. She marches to Princess Blanche's whereabouts. She even shares the remaining rare candies with Norma and Clara upon knowing they like it. Such an angel indeed. Meanwhile, a guest appears a little far away from Abigail's eyesight. Duke Stoke emerges from Princess Blanche's room. Abigail suspects them as the culprits to Abigail's death. This time, Abigail vows not to let anyone get away with any misdeeds. Determined, she strides into Princess Blanche's room. As the Queen enters the room, she finds Princess Blanche attending her etiquette class. Blanche looks so elegant with a book in her hand that Abigail lost her mind, thinking, why doesn't this era have cameras? She now wishes she could just burn this picturesque into her retinas. What a way to admire! Her eyes are even starting to water because they were kept open for so long. All of the admiring stops when she sees Blanche repeatedly scolded every time she wobbles and loses her balance. The frowning face of her nanny sends chills down her spine, telling her that she should display perfect etiquette as the daughter of the late Queen Miriam. Wow, so much for being a princess. Her nanny tells her no matter how important or gifted they are, their words will always be disregarded unless they are beautiful in appearance. Abigail is repulsed and angered by the notion, deeming it wrong to impart such ideals to a child. Even in this fantasy world, she's irked that these outdated teachings persist. Misogyny runs deep in her past life, telling her achievements are not for girls, they just need to be pretty to have a set life, or body standards like losing some weight or getting some touch-ups instead. She was judged multiple times by her looks, discrediting her capabilities, and telling her it is just how society works. This is just so heartbreaking. Observing the same treatment to Blanche, Abigail's heart aches. The nanny's blunt comments on the young girl's body, urging an 11-year-old to control her eating despite being smaller and thinner than most her age, evoke Abigail's sympathy. Poor baby. Abigail steps forward, offering Blanche the candy she prepared. But before Blanche can taste them, the nanny intervenes, demanding the Queen take back the gift. The audacity! You're so dead. Attempting to voice her dissent on how the nanny handles Blanche, Abigail is silenced when the nanny reminds her that it was Abigail herself who distanced from the princess's education. Once again, the past Abigail proves to be a thorn in her side. I mean, that woman in the past was such a pain. Sensing the tension, Blanche apologizes for her perceived greediness, reassuring Abigail she doesn't have to eat the sweets. Abigail is left wordless, struck by the complex emotions swirling around the situation. Abigail insists Blanche can enjoy the candies, but her nanny intervenes, forbidding it. She asserts to Her Majesty that maintaining a figure suited for dresses requires avoiding weight gain. Furious at the nanny's stance, risking Blanche's well-being for a particular body image and corset, Abigail swiftly dismisses her, asserting her dominance in the situation. In this place, where everything is different and unfamiliar, stifling rules like these still remain. In her past life, Abigail was skipping meals and taking appetite suppressants to diet up until the day she died. Blanche hesitates to indulge in the candies, but Abigail assures her that children have the right to enjoy tasty treats and grow happily and healthy. Blanche's happiness takes precedence above all. Those words embolden Blanche to take a bite, her eyes lighting up with joy. Suddenly, tears stream down her face, leaving Abigail flustered, wondering why Blanche is crying. Through sobs, Blanche reveals it's her first time tasting something so sweet. Overwhelmed, Abigail embraces her, saddened by the weight of such a simple pleasure, causing such emotions in the young girl. Promising to fulfill all of Blanche's desires, including a daily supply of sweets, Abigail encourages her to cry if needed, but always wears a bright smile, as radiant as the sun. The next day, King Savrion invites Abigail to join him for breakfast, but she anticipates indigestion rather than satisfaction from the meal. Both sit apart in silence. Abruptly, Savrion questions if it's true that she quarreled with Blanche's nanny, which she didn't deny. Abigail tells him the reason for such actions towards Madame Jeremy, the nanny, from starving Blanche to not respecting her, by not asking for her opinions on things. But Savrion seems trusting to Madame Jeremy that he keeps reasoning out for her. Well, a king must be rational at all costs, I understand that, but Blanche is his daughter, it should be different. Savrion asks her what kind of a nanny she wants since they need to find a replacement for Madame Jeremy. Even her name screams cheapness. He muses about Abigail's intentions, questioning if she aims to remove Madame Jeremy to bolster her own political standing. But he recalls that Abigail isn't seeking reward or power. She desires a quiet, inconspicuous life. He suggests someone from the Storkhouse as Blanche's new nanny, and Abigail agrees, provided the replacement respects Blanche and doesn't restrict her meals. Savrion remarks on the importance of meals to Abigail, surprising her with the implication that she's like a pig. She tries to not jump to conclusions. He wouldn't be that much of a nut job. He decides to leave Blanche to Abigail instead as her mother, although they don't share blood, which makes her shocked at first. He wonders if Abigail declines the princess, which Abigail immediately denies. With the decision made, Savrion leaves Blanche in Abigail's care, albeit with lingering concerns. He assigns a guard to the princess, viewing this as a test to confirm whether Abigail's transformation is genuine or merely an act. Curious, Millard asks Savrion if he might have developed feelings for Her Majesty. At the mention of feelings, Savrion smiles. Viewing marriage as a business transaction, emotions hold no place in his world. Hearing his response, Millard is speechless. As he watches the king walk away peacefully, he clenches his fist, summoning the courage to call His Majesty. A jittery Abigail prepares her and Blanche's first meal together. Unlike her meal with the king, nerves jangle within her for a different reason this time. She checks her face if it looks scary. Well, your character is supposed to be scary, so... She tries to make a softer expression, but fails miserably. Blanche enters the room, leaving Abigail in awe of her adorable presence. Abigail's heart races, trying to contain her smiles and calm her racing pulse. Uncertain of Blanche's preferences, Abigail prepares various dishes, hoping they suit her taste. Why does this feel more like a date than a normal breakfast? As Abigail glances at Blanche, she notices the young girl isn't eating and wonders if it's acceptable to devour everything. Confused, Abigail informs her that the main course isn't even served yet. Blanche shares that she's usually instructed to eat only half of the salads she's served. A mask of concern replaces Abigail's attempted scary demeanor. Composing herself, she encourages Blanche not to restrict or overeat. Blanche finally enjoys her meal while Abigail watches, utterly charmed. She looks like a hamster! Undeniably cute. Realizing that Blanche's father just stands by while his daughter isn't properly nourished angers Abigail. Learning that Blanche never shared a meal with her father intensifies her frustration towards Savrion's coldness. After Blanche's birth, Queen Miriam passed away, leaving Savrion grieving and vacant in his affection. Abigail learns that Savrion harbored resentment towards Blanche, believing her responsible for the loss of his love, a sentiment Abigail believes unjust. After the meal, they indulge in dessert time. Initially, only Abigail partakes as Blanche stops after a bite of the eclair. Blanche, finding the dessert too delicious, wants to give it to Abigail. Hearing this, Abigail feels a surge of happiness. She could die content. At this moment, she believes they formed a close bond. Abigail can't get enough of how cute and kind Blanche is. She just wants to touch her cheek so badly. Abigail, you're staring too much. Abigail tells her she appreciates the gesture, but she really hoped Blanche would enjoy those eclairs instead. Expressing gratitude, Abigail hopes Blanche relishes the eclairs she prepared for her. Blanche's delighted reaction makes Abigail wonder why Savrion could harbor hatred toward this lovable child. She vows to showcase this precious side of Blanche to make Savrion regret his neglect. Easy with the expression, Abigail. You're starting to look like that queen. Meanwhile, Savrion is enjoying his rare rest in the library until a knock disrupts his peace. Spotting the queen, he promptly closes his book. Abigail's visit aims to request Savrion to dine with Blanche once a day. Dismissing the importance, Savrion views Blanche as no longer a child, brushing aside the request as indulging childish behaviors for an heir to the throne, exasperating Abigail. Frustrated, Abigail insists she's trying to build their relationship. His dumbness about family and relationships is getting on my nerves. Savrion fails to grasp the connection between family and shared meals, questioning why he should join in when the Queen and Blanche often dine together. God Lord help this insensitive king. Abigail explains to him that he's the princess's father. The atmosphere becomes heavy as Savrion contemplates the idea, while Abigail, afraid of misunderstandings, immediately tells him that it doesn't mean he should dine with her as well, like he didn't have to play the role of a husband, just father-daughter bonding. But Savrion stares at her as he asks what she means by the role of a husband. He asks her how she came to the conclusion that she no longer desires his attention. Abigail would like to yell at his face that she is not his wife, but before she even answers the question, Savrion asks her again if she has found a lover, which Savrion will not interfere if Abigail brings in an escort. Seriously? I thought you were insensitive, but you're dumber than I thought. He even tells her that if she becomes pregnant, he will treat it as his own. What a jerk! Dumbfounded by what Savrion said, Abigail just looks like true evil with her dagger stares piercing through him. Abigail trembles as she confronts Savrion about his disrespectful remarks, expressing how she strived to maintain dignity and pride despite their superficial relationship. She's outraged by his insult. After all, she's his wife and the queen, deserving of respect. How dare he insult her this way? Anger consumes Abigail at Savrion's casual insult to his wife, leaving her shattered by her inability to act against him. She seethes with frustration at his audacity. Savrion swiftly apologizes, seemingly making frequent errors lately. He seeks forgiveness, while Abigail sees this as an opportunity to make her request a while ago possible. Savrion tries to haggle the schedule of the said meal with Blanche, but in the end, Abigail seals the deal for 3 days, a meal with her face marked with firm determination. Seeking to turn the situation in her favor, Abigail pushes for her earlier request. Despite Savrion's attempts to negotiate the schedule, Abigail stands firm, securing 3 meals a week with Blanche. Amidst Abigail's furious demeanor, Savrion chuckles, eventually agreeing to dine with Blanche thrice a week under one condition: Abigail must join them. Their dynamics seem oddly intriguing. There's no other option. Abigail agrees to the deal with a heavy heart. Before leaving, Abigail can't help but ask Savrion if it is because of the previous queen that he's been keeping a distance from her and Blanche. Before she's even finished, Savrion cuts her off by asking what nonsense she is spouting about loving the previous queen. Afterward, Abigail confides in Verite about her conversation with Savrion, expressing her frustration. She ponders over Savrion's apparent lack of affection for his own child and his prolonged absence from the queen's position. Abigail, just accept it! Savrion must be made out of iron and aluminum. Unable to confront Savrion due to his apparent distress, Verite hints at some palace rumors that might shed light on Abigail's unanswered questions, teasingly offering to share the grave tale with a devilish grin. She's now confused as to how Verite, a magical mirror, could have possibly heard any rumors when it's been in this room the whole time. Verite tells her that it has the ability to eavesdrop whenever there's a mirror, which surprises Abigail with this new unlocked feature. Abigail is too excited as she asks Verite to fill her up on the rumors. Verite starts with the well-known rumor about Savrion being emotionless and cold-blooded, imprisoning his own mother, the Queen Dowager, suspecting her of planning to seize the throne, a story Abigail is familiar with. The next rumor rattles Abigail. Speculation that Blanche might not be Savrion's biological child, sparking thoughts of a possible affair by the Queen. Trying to ground herself, Abigail reminds herself it's all hearsay. Chill, Abigail. It's just a rumor. Another rumor suggests Savrion's isolation stemmed from his distrust of women after his past with the Queen. Abigail is perplexed by Blanche's resemblance to Savrion, but Verite introduces another lookalike, Raven. Abigail is too indulged with all the drama, forgetting once again that it's just a rumor. The rumor's subject, Queen Miriam, has already passed away. There's no way to check, but Abigail can interrogate Raven, but Abigail knows that he will definitely refute. Remembering her mission in the relationship between Savrion and Blanche, Abigail loses her mind. Verite suggests its new surveillance-like feature, then suddenly the mirror changes its point of view to Savrion. Verite, you're indeed the eye of every corner. Keeping an eye on him using this would surely slowly uncover the truth. But it feels wrong for Abigail, thinking how violated he would feel to invade his privacy. Abigail knows that asking directly is just too foolish to do, so such things are needed to hear directly from them. So she plans frequent meetings to gauge their relationship dynamics. Meanwhile, the kitchen is hectic as they prepare His Majesty and the princess's meal. They are paying too much attention to every detail as per that queen's orders. Abigail has a long way to go to change her villain character into how she really feels right now. As the main course nears serving, the head chef instructs the server, and Madame Jeremy discreetly awaits by the hall, signaling the server to come over. Madame Jeremy calls the maid over and assures her that it will be okay. She sprinkles something unknown on the steak and instructs the maid to give it to Princess Blanche for her diet. The maid, clearly doubtful of Madame Jeremy's motivation, tests the substance. By her expression, it seems to be a normal spice. The old nanny hurries her to serve the meal. Unbeknownst to her, she is standing right beside a mirror as she spills her reason for doing so: to cause an incident. Give the princess a break, you evil nanny! In the dining hall, the 3 royals are sitting together. The maid serves them their meals, and as instructed, she gives the smallest steak laced with spice to Blanche. Across the table, Abigail calls the maid and requests to switch her plate with the princess, as she requested the one without the asparagus. At first, the maid panics, but is relieved when nothing happens. While eating, Abigail commends the chef for his work, but she has to stop since she also needs to start dieting soon. In her old world, society valued looks too, and she was looked down on due to her weight. She fears that she might be ostracized again if she doesn't watch her weight. They are now drinking tea, and she is beyond annoyed that the king hasn't said a word yet. This guy is really heartless for being cold to his daughter. Deciding to open a conversation herself, Abigail compliments Blanche on her cute dress and bids the king to do the same, which he does. The princess blushes as Abigail continues to shower her with praise. Suddenly, small fairy wings appear at the back of the blushing child. Abigail rubs her eyes, and the king and the princess look at her with concern. She seems to be feeling more excited than usual. What could this be? There it is again! Wings! Blanche looks at her with adorable, worried eyes. Abigail then proceeds to proclaim her admiration for the princess loudly and openly, which causes the other two to be even more concerned. She then asks the king to praise his daughter as well, which he does in a toned-down manner. She expresses her concerns about Blanche's upbringing and her desire to bounce the princess on her knees. Not only that, but she calls on the little princess who, although surprised, enthusiastically goes to Abigail's side. She hugs the child tightly before bouncing her and proceeding to cry. What is happening to our queen? At least she is freely expressing affection for our dear princess. The king knows that something is wrong. Abigail keeps switching from emotion to emotion, making him even more concerned. Savrion calls on Blanche, asking a maid to escort her out of the room despite Abigail's loud protests. He then orders a doctor for the manic queen. He looks at her a lot longer than usual and notices her eyes. Then suddenly, Abigail grabs onto his cheeks and starts giving him a sermon about him being a handsome, evil man. Every word enunciated by squeezing his cheeks, expressing her concerns about him not caring enough for his child. How comical! Way to go! Even in this state, she is spouting facts. Millard comes in and stands in shock as he sees the king being physically assaulted by the queen. He hurries and pries her off the king. The king commands him to bring in the doctor. The doctor suggests that she be in her bedroom, so she stands up. While standing up, Abigail gets dizzy and faints. Abigail wakes up with a hangover-like sensation and tries to remember how she got to her bed. She remembers the meal and the events that transpired after she became her intoxicated self. She recoils at the painful remembrance. How embarrassing. She thrashes on her bed as Savrion approaches her and asks how she is. She apologizes profusely, and he assures her that no offense was taken. He knows she would not say those things in any other circumstance. Furthermore, she apologizes again and wonders how she became the way she was. According to the doctor, the dish she ate had a significant amount of nutmeg, which is a common spice but can have negative effects if taken in excess. Abigail looks at Savrion, feeling his dark aura. Then he tells her that he decided to execute the chef for serving such a damaging meal. Instantly, Abigail jumps to the chef's defense and asks for a lighter punishment. She claims that the chef's demise will weigh heavily on her heart. Thankfully, he accepts, much to her relief. He then informs her that Blanche is looking forward to seeing her. A concerned Blanche quickly enters the chamber. She expresses regret to the youngster for acting inebriated throughout their supper. The young girl says that it's all right after expressing concern for the queen's welfare. The incident did reveal something that Blanche is curious about. Shyly, Blanche wants to know if the queen really likes her as she said earlier. Abigail shyly confirms this, and Blanche beams brightly. The princess then requests to go on a walk with her once she recovers completely. Abigail readily agrees and declares herself well, but the doctor advises her to take it easy and rest. She starts to object, but she is interrupted by an intense headache. We know that you're excited, dear Abigail, but you need to recover first. Before she can raise any more objections, the monarch reiterates the doctor's orders, and they leave her chamber. Abigail plops down on her bed to relax. Suddenly, a voice from the bedside table startles her. It's coming from the hand mirror. Verite expresses his worry and tells her that she should not downplay her sickness. The nutmeg she ingested almost caused her death. If not, it might have been a coma or blindness. That evil nanny, karma will come her way for sure. She looks at her mirror in utter disbelief. Verite remarks that the side effects Abigail felt after ingesting nutmeg were minor, and that if it was a young child like Blanche, death would have been inevitable. She shudders in horror at what might have been, remembering that the child almost ate it. Indeed, poor Blanche could have suffered those horrible side effects. Abigail really has to fire the chef now, she says out loud. The mirror informs her that the chef is not involved at all. The truth about the incident is then revealed by Verite. Soon enough, the queen summons Madame Jeremy. The old nanny thinks that the queen is unaware of her involvement, so she goes confidently, but upon entering the room, the air fills with hostility. Abigail then lays it out to Madame Jeremy and accuses her of attempting to poison the princess with nutmeg. The older woman proceeds to act like a victim with crocodile tears. Of course, the queen ignores this and calls the maid who served the meal. The accused denies her association with the maid. Abigail hammers down the fact that the two were involved by showing them the recorded events from a small mirror in a box. Ah! No escaping this now, evil nanny! Madame Jeremy looks in horror as she sees herself pouring the nutmeg on the meal. She caves and confesses to doing it so she can be the princess's tutor again. She only wanted to cause a small incident, she claims. This ticks off Abigail. She clasps the woman's jaws and explains the gravity of her crime. If Blanche had eaten the food laced with nutmeg, then she would have died. The old nanny looks at the queen in horror. She did not know the effects of the spice when she got it, and she did not even bother to ask if there were any effects on a child. Still holding the older woman's jaw, Abigail berates her even further. Who would do such a thing to a child, especially one she treated as her own for 10 years? Madame Jeremy apologizes profusely. Abigail lets go of the woman's jaw and gives her 3 options. First, to confess to the king herself. Second, the queen delivers the message, or lastly, the queen will end her life herself. Comfortably lounging on her chair with the maid messaging her, Abigail listens to her maid update her with the latest news. In the hopes that her penalty might be lessened, Madame Jeremy went straight to the king and confessed her misdeeds. But despite her efforts, her punishment was the death penalty. The king certainly does not hold back, that is for sure. After learning of it, the princess wrote to the king pleading for Madame Jeremy's life. The monarch gave in and altered her penalty to jail time. The chef is even back in the palace after being falsely accused. At present, Abigail sips her tea but instantly moves when reminded of the scheduled walk she had with the princess. After getting ready, Abigail goes to their meeting place early and enjoys the fresh air. In the corner of her eye, she sees something in the bushes, and lo and behold, it's Blanche picking flowers. She startles the child, but Blanche shyly gives her the flowers. The queen is delighted to receive it and compliments her for the beautiful flowers. Blanche pulls Abigail in and tells her how relieved and happy she was when the queen told her she liked her. She also thanks her for accepting her invitation to take a walk with her. Abigail is taken aback by this. The way Blanche expresses her feelings is evidence that she is growing up. The admiration and absolute love for this child are seeping out of her, causing tears to rise and causing concern in the child, which furthers her adoration. I love how perfect she is as Blanche's mother. We can clearly see that she will go to any length to protect her. The two go on their walk in the garden. While walking on the path near the palace, Abigail looks up at one of the windows, and she sees a glimpse of Savrion looking out the window. After a while, Abigail sits on the balcony. She has her easel set up and is drawing a landscape. Clara brings her tea and comments on her recently frequent drawings. Unknown to the maid, Abigail is starting her hobby so she can slowly transition to designing dresses. Clara notices the necklace she's wearing. The pendant has a piece of flower given to her by the princess. The two have become quite close since their walk. We can see just how happy our queen is about this. The maid informs her about the Founding Day festival and asks about the type of dress she'd like to wear. The mention of the event summons the memories of the original Abigail. She was humiliated on the last day of the founding festival. Abigail wonders if that will happen this time too. Another maid comes up to her, this one bearing gifts, and announces the arrival of an envoy from her homeland, Cronenberg. Abigail stands and goes to her visitor. On the way, she concerns herself about the identity of her visitor. If it isn't someone in Abigail's original memories, how should she treat them? Her worries disappear as she is greeted by someone she knows, Sir Moise. The older man across from her is Sir Moise, an acquaintance of the Emperor of Cronenberg. According to her memory, he is on friendly terms with Abigail. They greet each other formally, and Abigail asks about her parents' well-being. The older man fills her in that they are well. However, they do worry about her, especially because of the absence of heirs. She remembers her old life. It was like this too. On holidays, her relatives would always ask if she had a boyfriend, to go on a diet, her job, etc. Typical relatives meddling in your social life. This we can certainly relate to you, Queen. Sir Moise continues that her mother is concerned about her because of the events that happened at the previous year's festival when the king refused to dance with her. Dancing as a couple, no matter how bad their relationship is proper etiquette in this society. Savrion refused to dance with her, no matter how much she begged. The interaction was witnessed by nobles, who then started gossiping behind her back. The fact that Savrion is well known to dislike dancing is a silver lining. Abigail's mother is okay with them not dancing, but the real issue is producing an heir to cement the relationship between the two countries. The old man asks her if she's still hated by the king, and she assures Sir Mose that they are getting along just fine. She also mentions that they have been having meals together. This brightens up the old man. He then expresses his desire to see the king and queen share a dance for this year's Founding Day festival. Abigail looks taken aback. Sir Mose sees this and turns gloomy, immediately mentioning his doubts about the two of them getting along. She quickly retracts her expression and assures him that they do get along, but she is apprehensive about the subject of the dance. He beams, ignores Abigail's apprehension, and takes it all in a positive light. In the gardens, Savrion flinches. Someone must be talking about him behind his back. Millard communicates his doubts about the queen and the royals' relationship. They have been having meals together with his daughter there as well, a thing that Millard highly encouraged. Even after the nutmeg incident and the finding of the real culprit, Millard still doesn't trust the queen. It was strange that it was the queen who consumed it. Savrion admits that he doesn't really trust her fully, but it would be excessive to suspect her after the perpetrator has been found. He doesn't plan on having anything with her, as he has no feelings for her. He's just curious about the variety of emotions she expresses and the warm aura that was not present before. You better hold on to your word, mister. Honestly, Abigail deserves better. From a distance, she can see a boy running towards them. He tells the king that the queen has requested a dance. They meet in the garden. Abigail stands under the shade as the king and his aide approach. They greet each other. Savrion directly asks Abigail for the reason for their meeting. Millard leaves the two royals to converse privately, although reluctantly. Abigail and Savrion are now left alone in the garden. Savrion asks her again his unanswered question, the reason for the meeting. Abigail carefully tells him that she wants to dance with him at the Founding Festival Day party. Before he can reject her, she explains further that due to pressure from her family, they would like to see an improvement in their relationship through a dance. Her country's latest envoy, Sir Mose, expressed her family's discontent after the fiasco that happened the previous year, and the fact that they have not produced a child together. He understands this and thinks about her simple request. She looks and approaches him differently for the request than she did last year. She's different somehow. Her aura is definitely different, but it is still troubling for him. He quickly makes excuses for himself, saying that he does not wish to dance and do so in front of others. Abigail's impression of this is that he has two left feet, so she offers to practice with him since there is still plenty of time before the party. Savrion ponders why he's unable to reject her proposal, so now he's struggling to give her an answer. She looks at him expectantly. He really doesn't want to dance, but he can't just tell her that, so he ends up telling her he'll think about it. Why is a usually arrogant guy like him acting all shy? What is happening to Savrion? He must have looked forced to Abigail as she apologizes for wasting his time and walks away, taking the king's half-hearted answer as a no. Dance practice time. Blanche goes first. She is practicing with Clara, who's instructing her on the steps. They finish with a twirl and a bow, and as if on cue, Abigail, accompanied by Martha, is there in the background to cheer and praise the princess. Blanche blushes humbly at her stepmoms and Clara's praises. She shyly expresses her wish to dance better so she can also receive compliments from her father. The three adult women surrounding her are stunned. No matter how mature and dignified she acts, Blanche is still a child, and it's normal that she seeks her parents' approval. Poor little girl. She deserves to feel loved by her father. No matter how handsome you are, Savrion, ignoring your child is such a red flag. Abigail pats her on the head and assures her that he will absolutely be happy for her. The princess then asks if she can dance with her father, which shocks Abigail. She wants to tell the child the truth, that her father is a bad dancer, but she decides against it. As bad of a father as he is, Abigail doesn't want his child to think differently of him. She quickly saves the situation by offering to dance with Blanche instead. Her half-meaning proposition is met by the child's enthusiasm, and Clara backs up the child's approval as they both look lovely together. Both are now in agreement, so they decide to practice dancing right away. The two do the usual dance routine, and they are clearly enjoying it. Abigail silently thanks that her body has memories of dancing, as the original owner liked to dance to get attention. She thinks back to her old life when she garnered negative attention while dancing due to her weight. She doesn't let that memory get her down as she enjoys her dance with the princess. The dance practice ends as they bow to each other, and the room fills with claps and praises from the two witnesses, Clara and Martha. Still emotional, Clara suggests that they wear matching outfits at the party. The two royals find this a good idea. Blanche proposes that the queen choose the outfit for the two of them, which pumps Abigail up. She has been waiting for this after all. In her room, Abigail draws her designs while asking Verite for suggestions. She shoos the mirror as she draws a design that Blanche will absolutely like. Before she became Abigail, she was a designer. Her extensive knowledge of clothing history is helping her design the perfect outfit for herself and her lovely adopted daughter Blanche. Most of the fashion trends of their time are uncomfortable, even for adults. So she decides to work around it and sketches out a design that Verite comments on being unique. Abigail already has a bunch of other designs, so she takes her drawings to Blanche, who is waiting for her at dance practice. Abigail hands over the papers to the child, who admires all of them and thanks her. The drawings are then handed over to the maid so they can start their practice. Everyone in the room, except the queen, gasps as Savrion walks in. He has come to practice dancing, which surprises Abigail because she assumed that he had rejected her. Millard approaches the princess as she greets the king. The secretary greets the child warmly. Abigail can clearly see that the man is also a member of the fan club that she is also in. He then offers to dance with her, but Blanche wants to dance with the queen. Millard glares at Abigail, and before their menacing looks can turn into a fight, the king stops them. Turns out, Millard is another member of the Blanche fan club. No wonder he's so hostile towards the queen. To avoid any trouble during the practice, Abigail suggests the princess dance with her father so that they can dance together during the party. Savrion reluctantly agrees after some convincing from Abigail and Millard. He stands on the dance floor and he presents his hand as an invitation for Blanche. Blanche looks at her father and shyly retreats behind Abigail's skirt. She can clearly see the child's hesitance to accept the king's invitation, so she encourages her with a promise to practice with her more. The princess accepts Savrion's hand and they just stand there awkwardly. Even after the music starts, they stare at each other timidly. Abigail acts quickly and shows them a demonstration of the dance with Clara. She dictates the steps as they go along so the king can comprehend the dance himself. The king leads his daughter to do the same dance. To Abigail's surprise, it seems the king got her demonstration to the T as the two danced well together. Until Blanche stumbles on his foot, falls to the ground, and concerns everyone, including her father. The queen and princess are taken aback by this rare display of emotion by the king. He makes sure that Blanche is okay before continuing their practice. After their second round of practice, Savrion concludes it by being strict with Blanche, which Abigail certainly does not appreciate. Now it's time for Abigail and the king to practice. After making sure Blanche is okay, she looks back at him and he looks pale. She tries to make him comfortable by offering to send off the audience, but he claims he's okay, so they proceed. She requests the musicians play the music and reaches out her hand to Savrion for the dance. He stands there pale and frozen, looking at her hand like he's seeing some horrifying thing on it. He draws away from Abigail, stopping their barely started dance practice. What can his problem be? Why can't he touch her? And that's it for today, guys. What did you think? As always, don't forget to like the video and comment for the next part so we know you want more. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications for updates. See you in the next one!